Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them in podcast form. Visit ArtistFirst.com. You want to send your questions and comments in, we'd love to hear from you. Send them to dj@ArtistFirst.com. And now, here's your hosts. Around here, they're known as the Wise Winos. It's Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Yes, that's true. And welcome to New Year's Rockin' Eve with Ryan Seacrest.
No.
Hi, Ryan. Tonight is New Year's Eve for all you people who are celebrating around the world, and we are going to have a very, very great show tonight because we are going to be drinking heavily. And we are also going to have a very special guest, someone that you have heard from many times over the years and who has an enigmatic backstory, someone without whom this show would be far less than it is today. Without further ado, we're going to introduce to you the one, the only, Z-Man.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Glad to be here.
Oh, there he is.
Had to turn my mic on there. Not used to doing that.
Z, come on, man.
Well, usually I announce it and hit the mic, and then I go and do other stuff.
Yeah, but now we're going to do fun things.
And may I ask what your libations are this evening?
We are drinking heavily from tonight's drink of choice for the very first one is Founder's Mosaic Promise. Now that sounds shishi, but I'll say that it was a Christmas gift which we stole 2 cans out of a 15-pack and gave the rest of them away. So it is a single hop ale, which means it only has 1 rabbit in it. And it is a 5.5 on the Richter scale.
That'll work.
Yeah. What are you drinking there, Z?
I am drinking a Steel Reserve. I know people are giggling when they hear that because, well, it's Steel Reserve, but it's 8.1.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah.
He's way ahead of us.
We'll be shortly. Anyway, but folks, and we just want to say this right up front. We've all made arrangements to drive safely or have someone, in my case, handle the driving after the show tonight, and I believe that Michael and Margaret are at home. So if you drink and drive, don't do that. Have somebody take you home or drink at home.
Drink at home and drink heavily. And we are hanging out in the front yard, but we will make it home from here.
Make it up the stairs.
We are not hanging out in the front yard. We are in the top secret, never to be disclosed location upstairs in the Bat Studio, where all the magic happens.
I see. we are in for it tonight, folks.
We are in for it tonight. And our usual fare here in the Soul of Everyman is somewhat philosophical and somewhat, dealing with sort of the issues of life and some of the more serious things sometimes. But tonight we're going to throw all that to the wind and take 2.5 years worth of wonderful shows and just put them in the crapper. Because now you're going to get the real us.
You're going to destroy 2.5 years worth of work in one evening.
In one evening, but there's everyone has to have goals, and this is one of them. But we thought we would sit back and kick back and not have too much of a topic tonight. And if you guys, Scott did announce at the beginning of the show, if you want to join in, send us your questions and your comments. Normally the shows kind of roll along and we talk a lot and we don't get a lot of questions and comments. But tonight, if you're half lit up and you want to ask us anything, now's your chance. Hopefully the lines will just light up. It's been an interesting 2.5 years. I have to say, Scott, you got us. Let's go back to the origins of the Soul of the Everyman, which was really an interview that you and I did about one of the books that I wrote. It might have even been right There's a Reaper. And at the conclusion of the interview, you said, "Can you hang on for a few minutes?" And I said, "Sure, what the heck," and we had a little conversation. I think we probably talked for like another 45 minutes, right?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. Your book struck me, of course, not on a personal level that would ever compare to what you and Margaret went through, but my next door neighbor, who was my best friend, had the same outcome and disease that your son had, and that show it moved me a lot because it took me back to the days when my friend Craigie Moore, he passed away at age 9 in 1970, and it just sometimes it just hits you right between the eyes. Well, and I feel stupid saying that after you guys went through what you went through.
No, not at all, not at all. That's exactly. It's one of the reasons why we wrote Chris's story, because it's something that is common to many people, not necessarily all leukemia, but it's a human experience.
Mhm. When a child's death happens, it's so there's something inside of you that just says this is just wrong.
It's wrong, exactly.
And it impacts on a deep level for everyone, especially if you're a parent.
Yeah.
Because you sit there and you go, well, what would I do if it was my kid?
Exactly. So we talked for a long time, and somewhere in that conversation, I'm not sure when, perhaps after the second or third beer, you said, you have a face for radio. You said to me, and I said, you're right. I do have a face for radio. I said, would you like to do a show? It wouldn't be a big thing. You would just try it out, and And I said, well, let me think about it. And I think I got back to you maybe a couple, 3 days later, and I said, well, I'd like to do a show with myself, but not just me. I'll do it with Margaret, because if I was on there by myself, I think it would be like shut-in radio. It'd be like ranting guy on radio. So with Margaret added, once I asked you, Marg, if you would do this, and you looked at me as though I had 3 heads, and you agreed that you thought this was a good idea. The concept for the show, at least the germ of the show, was born, and we did try it out.
Well, it was one of those where it was so out of left field for us. We hadn't even considered anything like it.
Although, you know what, Z, what we had said when Mark and I talked about it in the original, said we used to run a rock and gem store. Rather, it was Margaret's store, and I was the slave labor that helped her out, and unpaid slave labor. I might add.
Oh, hence the word slave, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Well, there's paid slave labor and unpaid. So as the unskilled unpaid slave labor, we had a lot of contact with the public, and and people, peoples are revolting, but we used to talk both to the folks and to each other, while we were there in the shop. And every time we would notice, we would start to have an interesting conversation. We would always note that other people in the shop would stop what they were doing, and they would listen in. And we thought, well, maybe that's what the show should be. It should be just us kind of, having a conversation, and everyone else, all you folks out there, all the millions of you out there in the ships at sea, and our troops overseas could be listening in. And so we had an audience of one. We have Scott.
And I enjoy the show.
And he enjoys the show. And that's all. That's what we're in it for. We're here for you.
I can honestly say, I'm being 100% truthful, we have not received a single hate mail for your program ever. Ever.
Darn.
Well, that's, some people bitch if you hang them with a new rope. And, get it.
True.
And we have not, some people are haters and they just don't like anything that seems interesting, and we have not. Many of our shows get disgruntled listeners. Did I tell you they opened up a new website, just for the purpose of criticizing me and Michael on the Urantia show? An entire website.
Wow.
Seriously?
Man, you guys really have
not joking.
Good haters.
Yeah.
industrious
Yes.
haters.
Well, I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's only been up about a month or so, and I haven't been able to look at it because you have to enter your email address, and they would recognize mine since all mine are at ArtistFirst.com. I got to get some spies to go look in on it. But no, you guys, your program is. It's certainly one of the more, how do I say this without offending listeners? It's a highbrow program. You know, you guys talk about things the average person has to sit down and think about, and I think that's wonderful.
Well, we make most of it up as we go along.
Well, that's obvious, but still.
Yes, it is. And the best part about it is, you know, we'll do a little inside baseball. You know, when the Soul of the Everyman started, which was literally about 2.5 years ago, we're up well over 200 shows, and you know, Margaret and I really had no idea what we were going to talk about. And so we did, for the very first show, kind of put together a format. We thought, well, we'll put together a format. We'll have an introduction, and we'll have sort of a little monologue, and then we'll kind of discuss. And we had this idea. We put this together, this format. And the only thing that has survived to this day is the bottom of the hour break, because everything else we almost threw it away halfway through the very first show. We said, this is not working at all. So the show has. Obviously, you know, we've gotten, we hope, a little better at doing it, and the show has kind of evolved organically. Initially, we had a lot more guests, and we found out guests are stiffs and no good.
Well, you have to find somebody.
Except for you, except for present company. I mean, you know, besides yourself, who we consider as part of the family, not a guest. You know, all the rest of the guests are pretty much stiffs. But that's not true. All you guests out there, we love you. We really do love you.
Yeah, we just got a hate letter from Dr.
Damn!
Bump. Am I reading that right?
Dr. Bumpay? What was his name? No, Chris loves us. Chris, we are like this with Chris. You can't see my fingers, but we are like that. But that the very first show and the very first few shows, we were kind of feeling our way out, into it rather. And I think that we started to develop a rhythm. You know, Margaret and I back and forth. You know, where we would understand. To kind of trade the thought, let the discussion kind of flow naturally, and kind of play off each other's points. And even with guests, we would do the same. It's a skill, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but we had to kind of work out on how to let someone talk, and share a conversation where you're not all in the same room.
Yeah, there's a skill to interviewing people, which I obviously have not mastered, but I'm sure it is out there. And
somewhere.
I got to say this, when we discussed this, as you were just recalling, about putting on a show, I had never heard of Margaret, never heard her say anything, didn't even know she would be interested in doing this. And Margaret, damn girl, you are so well educated in so many different things, the mystic religions, the Tibetan religions. You have a depth of knowledge that was truly surprising when the show came. Because it's
right.
Well,
yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow, and what a compliment that is. And so few people I'm talking about stuffy Americans. They don't take the time to look at things like that you have, and what an added dimension that has been to this program.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, you know what it is, Scott? I have a number of friends who they say things like, well, I'm a Buddhist, or I'm a Hindu.
Rastafarian.
Hey, man.
But what I found is that they really don't go in depth into any of it. The one that I know of that is claiming Buddhism just likes to kind of zone out in meditation. That's it. There's no depth to it. It's just, this is the only way he's found that he can turn his brain off. And I love him dearly, but it's like you can go deeper. There was a reason why you had to turn your brain off. Would you like to take another step? you know. And
Well,
every person's got that.
yeah. I think the dimension that Margaret adds, Scott, and I'll just put this out there, is that she really is, besides having the background and besides being able to bring a really diverse and really comprehensive point of view, you're also the better, saner, more calming voice. Everyone who listens to the show, and I've heard this many, many times, will say, "I love listening to Margaret's voice." In contrast, and I say, "And you mean you hate listening to mine?" And they say, "Yes, you're right. That's exactly in contrast." But in truth, you have a naturally mellifluous and calming tone, that comes right through on the radio.
Hmm. Oh, okay.
It's true.
What do I know?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, I try to be the comic relief. It doesn't work most of the time, but I try, and we definitely have a nice, I'll just say I think we have a nice dynamic, and the show ranges a bit. We kind of try to mix it up, and certainly. From the beginning, where we were having a lot of guests and we were kind of feeling our way, we've kind of worked ourselves into a rhythm where we have a guest on once every couple of months or so, but most of the time it's just stuff that we are interested in talking about.
And I think that's part of what it is in any conversation. Whenever you happen upon another's conversation, if they're truly interested in what they're saying, and it's not just a harangue where they're trying to get anger out or a complaint out, but a real conversation where you're trying to exchange concepts, ideas, emotions, or thought, but not a...
They don't have any axe to grind.
Right. I think that's always fascinating. I know it is for myself, but I'm sure it's fascinating to most people because suddenly you get a snapshot of what is in their heart, what's motivating them, why they do certain things. Have you ever happened on a conversation where when you listen to it, it opened the door into, oh, so that's why you do what you do.
Right.
This person is done this strange little thing, and you're like, oh, well, that explains why you do that.
Right. That's the level of crazy that you are.
We all are, honey.
Right. Well, and Scott, I have to thank you for for letting us do this in the sense of kind of letting the show be the format that it has been. We obviously we could do anything we want, but we do want to be informative and entertaining, and I think that having this sort of free format to have these discussions,
we appreciate it.
We appreciate having the ability to do this, and for our one fan, we're here for you.
When we got into this business, we were one of the first to be in the what is now so ubiquitous. As you guys know, AM and FM radio stations are closing every week. There are countries, right. I think Norway and Sweden, I may be wrong on the countries, but in that region, they have shut off their analog FM signals forever. Those stereos you spent a bunch of money on back in the 80s and 90s, they will never work in the FM world again. Anyway, I digress. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We have made every mistake possible in this business because we are idiots. But we don't make the same mistake twice. We learn from our mistakes. And one of the things that we have realized as radio station people now, now we're starting our 24th year, something like that, is, in our opinion, what makes a radio show viable is who the host or hosts is or are. if you are not not even intelligence isn't the word. If you're not an engaging person, if you're not an interesting person, well, let me just say that if some shows that we've tried, it's like listening to paint dry.
Right.
Just doesn't work. I mean, extremely intelligent people. It has nothing to do with your intelligence. There's something that's hard to put your thumb on. What makes this show better than that show? And this is one of my favorite shows because you guys are on a level. And Michael, when you first came on, I thought you were as dumb as a bag of hammers.
Well, that's true.
I'm just kidding. I only said that to he's not. What shocked me is, I only got a chance to spend about 50 minutes with Michael the first time he was on, and we were talking about a very sensitive topic. Although I have probably interviewed 20 people, 25 people who have had the exact same experience. For instance, one of the more interesting shows I did was with we've had a lot of Iraqi wars. The first Iraqi war,
The Gulf War
the Gulf War.
Enduring Freedom thing.
Under Bush the First. This young lady was in the military, and while she was serving in that conflict, she gets a phone call from home. Her husband and 4 children were driving in a van in the Dallas area, were in an accident, and all 5 were killed.
Oh, my God.
And there she is sitting thousands of miles away. And why I'm bringing this up is, unfortunately, these things happen to a certain percentage of the population. But I never would have thought that person made a good pick for a radio show, a continuing broadcast. I mean, that show was fascinating for the book she wrote and what happened to her. But you guys, Michael, you had something about you that's hard to, like I said, hard to put your thumb on. That
lithium.
Well, we used to call. I thought maybe it was mushrooms, but I don't know if they have those.
Mushrooms. Could have been mushrooms.
They still have those anyway. It was when I was in college, but
yeah, we've got lots of them. I mean, no, we don't. None. They're all gone.
And then when we heard from Margaret, it was like, oh my goodness, these guys are on a level that none of our shows are. You guys are the most. I shouldn't say the most intellectual show because that's not true. We have shows that are very, very bright people, PhDs on top of PhDs, but your show is fascinating. It appeals to everyone. Every person that listens to every one of your shows can relate to what you guys are talking about. Whether they've lost a child or not, that's irrelevant to the fact that you guys are very smart people. You are very worldly people. There's a big difference between smart people and worldly people. You're running on both cylinders, and it's a delight to have you guys on our station.
Margaret has all 4 cylinders, actually. We really enjoy doing this show. I know what to walk back to the earlier part of your comment. It isn't that that people don't have these experiences. They do, and it isn't that that you can't find folks who have far more in-depth knowledge about these topics. There are many, but I think what we're able to do, and I'll say Margaret is able to do, is to talk about these things from sort of a communication level that we talk about a lot of the same subjects, but from different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And what Margaret always says is that there's a language there's a word and a language for the same concept for many different people, and it's a different word and it's a different language for the same exact concept. So you have to find, when we were in the store, you had to find what world, what kind of language the person we were talking to spoke, whether it was crystals or minerals or this type of religion, that type of whatever it is, and then you kind of go in, you carve out your words and your concepts in the way you present them, so that you have an actual conversation with this person. Yeah. And so we've tried to recreate that with the way we do the show.
Yeah. I'd say that the store itself had a very broad appeal, but whenever a person did come in, you had to find a way to really communicate with them.
Right.
So you had to find out where their mindset was. Were they just interested in the rocks because they're pretty? Was someone interested in it because they're actually a collector and a collector of rare natural specimens? Was it a scientific basis where they're actually looking for something to extract from the stone? Was it an energy thing where if it's energy, then there's all subworlds in the energy thing, because you've got the Chinese
Reiki.
No, that's different. Reiki.
Well, no, I mean Reiki's different. Yeah, Reiki, Chinese, whatever, all the different ones.
It's different.
Reiki my yard.
That's another Chinese.
That's another one.
Another Chinese philosophy.
But with the Chinese tradition is Feng Shui, so there is
Right.
a lot of rules with Feng Shui. And then you had the Hindu way of doing things, where you're wearing different jewels or different stones on specific parts of the body because of the energy. And then you had the other crew, which was in the subcategory of energy, the New Agers, who were playing with the stones, but were so completely ungrounded that you almost had a rope, throw a lasso up around their neck and pull them back down from
drag them down.
Yeah, because they're bumping up on the ceiling, they're getting high off energy, and you're just like, listen, you can't just float around like this.
But you very rapidly could discern their, whatever their modality was, whatever their brand of crazy was, and then have a conversation with them.
Yeah, no, that was a wild experience with the store, because we literally had every spiritual or religious,
shamans, all kinds of people.
South American shamans, and in North America we actually had one of the
medicine men, Delaware tribe.
From the Delaware tribe, the medicine man used to come into our store, and basically you could talk energy with him.
Right.
And he would basically say, I can only come here and feel at home because the stones are set in a way that is harmonious. And when I take a step outside, it's almost like I'm getting attacked by the discordant energies. So that was, it opened up a whole, just so many different worlds. And then, of course, you had the people who were only interested in jewelry and the jewelry aspect of it. Right. So you had, what's precious, what's semi-precious, how is it cut, blah, 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 diamonds, how do they do that?
But you see, Scott, and I'll say this, Margaret had the ability to do all of these things and be able to have people resonate with the way she was communicating with them on all these different levels, up and down, and she could go as high as they wanted to go, as low as they wanted to go. You were instructing people, you were guiding them. You were, to be their confessor. There's another story I'll just relate. That I've known this woman for a very long time, and it's an observation that Margaret will meet someone, and 10 minutes later they are sobbing, telling her their life story, and she is comforting them, and they walk away, and years later they will come up and say, I remember you told me this and you changed my life. And she's like, who the heck are you? I don't even know who the heck you are. Or maybe you'll remember them, but they remember you. They remember her. People will, walk by, should be walking along the store, and people will yell across the store, running down 5 aisles, throwing their peanut butter to the side, saying, it's Margaret, I know that you were the person who changed my life. She's like, who are you? Hi, you.
That's like, give me $1.
Well, we
Well, Margaret, how did you? I'm sorry for interrupting. How did you gain so much wisdom?
Oh, that is. In all honesty, Scott, that is because of what I had to go through, and it's a number of things. It's not just the fact that I had to witness my son going through cancer and literally escorting him along through all stages, including the death process. But also through my childhood, I saw an awful lot of things. And I realized at that point that I need to have that personal connection with God, and it's got to be through my heart, because I was trying to come to some kind of peace, and I was put into situations where it's just crazy. There's no peace to be had, and I needed to have heart peace. And the only way I knew how to do it was to take a step into prayer. That was my first, because I realized everything that's being thrown at me, including, the religion that we happen to be in. The people will say a whole bunch of things. People you love will say a whole bunch of things, and they may mean well, but it's not heart true. Maybe that's the best way to put it. And I needed to have the peace in my heart and to abide in that heart trueness. So everything, just like you were saying with your radio station, 24 years, you made every mistake. Well, so did I. And I had to learn step by step, well, this is not what this person actually meant. They were going to try and explain something. And you have to understand, I had a bunch of people where English is their second language. So their concepts were kind of fuzzy when it came to using what word for what they actually meant. So I had to go past the word and try to hit the concept that they were trying to communicate. And that trained me at an early age, because it was different languages and different cultures, and then you had to find your way into a more modern society, and then you had subcultures within the modern society.
She's also a stone cold genius, folks. Certified stone cold genius.
Is your house... Wait.
No.
Is your house
Genius.
a mess?
Yes.
Okay, she's a genius.
What?
Bingo.
No, it's completely neat.
Uh-oh.
What did you say?
No,
I
it's
asked
fine.
if your house...
Wait a minute. I didn't get that. What
I
did you
asked
just say?
if your
Genius.
house was a mess.
No.
Don't they say that
Yes.
about genius people, that they're not interested in picking up a magazine off the carpet? That's not interesting enough to them.
Well,
This is the lie I've been saying to myself, why my house, it looks like a frat house.
well, exactly. But in truth, my statement, I'll stand by it. Margaret really is a genius, and I was very lucky to meet you all those years ago, and very happy to have formed a relationship with you and been married to you all this time. But in this forum, the store was one thing where we were kind of dealing with the public, but in this forum, I think that there's at least 7 other people who now know that Margaret is a genius, or maybe 17 people. Who knows? I mean, no, I mean, I'm serious about this. There is my relationship with you, and of course the people that got to know you through the store. Every one of those people found that they could talk to you, and the basis for our relationship was that we could have a conversation.
Right.
And I think that if you categorize genius, and there's many different ways to categorize genius, one of them is the ability to have a really in-depth, meaningful conversation. And you've got that talent, innately got that talent from the time you were born. It's not your only talent, but you've had that talent from the time you were born, that you can go to a level which is far beyond, Scott, when I meet someone, I'm like, hi, how you doing? Good, great, bye. Margaret will meet someone, hi, how you doing? Tell me your life story. I will fix the broken places in your soul. You will remember me to your dying day. Bye.
You are so bad.
This is absolute truth. These are people who she met them 10 minutes ago, and they are puddles of goo on the floor telling her, it's not that she asked them. They are compelled to open up their hearts because you're so, and this is the truth, she's so compassionate in conversation. You give them the opportunity without any judgment, without any without any kind of barrier. And this is what you were saying before, the heart true. You show them that you're there to listen with the heart true, and people respond to that. And I think that comes through the radio. I think people, if they met you, would be a different kind of one-on-one, but even one to many, I think it comes through.
Margaret, how did you meet Michael?
Oh, I need another drink.
We were in the same college together as freshmen.
What college?
That's how we met.
We don't want to pry too deeply, so you can obfuscate as much as you want. But where did you guys go to school?
You go ahead.
Well, we went to Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken.
It was an institute, yes.
Yes, we met at the institute.
We met at the institute.
That sounds kind of formal. Okay, so what?
Well,
he just happened to be a classmate? And come on, there has to be more details.
We were on the same drug regimen. We were classmates.
Was that cocaine or LSD or marijuana or what else was popular back then?
It was an experimental program. There were several different drug cocktails.
Okay.
We actually had friends in common.
Mm-hmm. It was one of those where you're in a giant lecture hall with hundreds of people, and you're just trying to find a place to sit so that if you were being put to sleep by your professor, you could actually sort of slump over and not be noticed.
True.
So we would all, as friends, people introduced us, and we would all wind up just sort of sitting, and then that's when the conversation started, because as inevitably as it happens when you're dealing with a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds, there's dramas going on.
Yes. Well, and I believe we were all commuters too. The cadre of people that we mostly hung out with.
Right.
You see, Hoboken isn't that far away from where I live. It wasn't far enough away that it made sense for me to, where I grew up rather, but it didn't make sense for me to live on campus. And for Margaret, it was even closer. It was really, Hoboken and where you grew up were probably 10 miles away from each other, if that.
You took the subway in.
Yeah, you could take the subway in from take the train in basically, and so there was that, that we were kind of hanging out in the same places where the commuters hung out rather than in the dorms where everybody else hung out.
Yeah. So it just started in terms of as friends, and then a conversation, and then
a conversation. Yeah.
And because my background, there was so many different languages going on and different cultures, the fact that I was able to have a straight conversation with someone impressed me greatly.
What were you studying?
Well, the Institute has a variety of subjects that you study. No, it's an engineering college, Scott. Margaret, being, again, stone cold genius, was taking more math that even God couldn't do.
Stop. Now he's making it all up. Now,
no, this was math that people, it's like, now the folks who are doing string theory would just get up to that point. So Margaret was a biomedical engineering was what you were looking for, but we were in freshman classes were all the same for
Freshman
everybody.
classes was just basic, whatever your basics were for freshmen, and they had a brutal. It was a brutal. Um,
It was a difficult school, a very competitive engineering type school, and so, but I think you knew we had friends in common to start with. So did you know a couple of people that I knew, and I knew a couple of people that you knew. So we all kind of hung out together.
Yeah, we were hanging together. We were just trying to survive, if I remember correctly.
And by the way, Margaret is also gorgeous. So I was very lucky on many fronts.
This is awful.
No, this is the absolute truth. She's a stone-cold, gorgeous genius. I'm sorry, folks.
You can see those the photos. You can see on the ArtistFirst website under the Soul of the Everyman and the Genius.
Yeah, don't look at mine though.
You can listen to. I know. I was kind of disappointed when I saw your photo, Michael.
Yeah, me too.
But I gotta say that I've interviewed around 16,000 people in my career, and you only get so many minutes in an interview when it's subject driven, like a book or a play or an album, and you don't really get to know the depth of the person you're talking to. And I was stunned, honest to God. I was embarrassed after. I got to know you, Michael, and got to listen to you outside of the parameters of that first interview about that specific book. I was taken aback that you are a brilliant person, and the two of you are so far ahead of all of the other hosts. Oh, God, I'm going to lose clients now, but...
No.
But
no.
You guys are the powerhouse of intellect on ArtistFirst.
Oh, dear.
Oh, no. I fake it really well, and I just kind of stand in the reflected glow of Margaret's genius. I'm keeping it real here, folks. I am the comic relief. I am the Robin to her Batman.
Oh my God. Oh, the image that just flashed in my head.
I am the pinky to your brain.
The pinky in the brain, yeah. That's kind of what we look like. I'm way too serious for my own good, Scott. That's my problem. And I need to have a more lighter touch, especially when I'm trying to just not get annoyed at people. It's very hard not to get annoyed at people.
People are idiots.
It just he basically brings me out of now you know.
Do you own any weapons?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Margaret is actually registered with the FBI.
Stop it.
We have a lot of
Oh,
weapons.
I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry.
Wait,
I didn't
under
mean
what
the
category?
Actual we can't discuss it any further.
Well, some people.
I've already said far too much. Yes, go right ahead.
Margaret was discussing her frustration with some people because they don't get it. I just shoot those people.
Well, yeah, we don't shoot them. We just bury them in the back. But
No. Just, at this point, honestly, Scott, this is something that I've had to sort of wrestle with internally, because when you're dealing with someone who is not quite understanding what you're saying, and you keep changing the way you say it a number of times, like different perspectives, to try to help them along to get it. And then you realize that really they are not listening. Because usually when you've changed, rephrased what you're saying at least 3 times, and they still aren't getting it, it usually means that they don't want to.
No, it's that you're not yelling at them loud enough.
Well, that could be it.
Oh yeah, well,
increase your volume to make your point.
Well,
it never works for me, hon. It's too much energy for me. I'm just looking at it going, nah, it's not worth it.
Not worth it. And in truth, that's not true. You really are incredibly compassionate with people most of the time, and very patient. And I think the frustration, some of the frustration that you truly do express, is sometimes just when you'll run into people, and you do run into people that are kind of looking, like when we would have folks come into the shop and they were looking for this sort of contact high from the crystals. They really weren't there to learn anything. They weren't there to be to actually evolve or actually move on or do anything constructive. They were just kind of there to get their next hit. And so it gets to be sort of a parasitic relationship, and that's, I think, where your frustration will come in. If folks have an open heart, or they're truly looking, they're truly seeking, whether they get it or not. Margaret is incredibly patient with them, and she's had people who for years, she's been working with people for years. She's, Scott, I have to say this in all seriousness, that my own attitudes toward people were very much like, hey man, that's great, I don't care. That is your problem.
That's pretty much where I'm at right now, Michael.
Yes, yeah, but Margaret, it's not like that. She cares. You care about people, and I think where you get frustrated is where you're caring about them so much, and still they're kind of willfully moving in their own way, and it's never a frustration born of a lack of patience. I think it's more of a frustration born of a sort of a willful interference, if you will. But in fact, let's go back to the show for a second, because we've kind of wandered far afield. In the show itself, I see my main role, besides being sort of kind of keep the thing moving and have a little bit of lightness, is I try to make sure that the points that you make, and Margaret makes sometimes these very insightful points, and she'll make them 7, 8, 10 in a row, like within 2 sentences. And I'm thinking, okay, there's that, okay, and I have to make I'm doing a mental gymnastics list, okay, and when she finishes, I have to say, well, let's go back and kind of open this up, because I think that there's so much there that I try to make. Sometimes we can spend the next 15 minutes talking about the 2 sentences that Margaret just spoke, and then we'll go back and forth and try to open them up a little bit. So I think that I see as part of the way of that the show progresses, is that we're able to kind of expand those thoughts.
Well, it's a conversation.
It's a conversation.
Between the two of us. So you bring up a point, and then it triggers something else. And honestly, Scott, a lot of the times I just ask that the unconditional heart or unconditional love in the divine heart just fill me. Whatever needs to come out comes out. And many times, I'm in this conversation with Michael, and grace, I could feel when grace flows. And when grace flows, the words become almost poetic. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Right.
And I can honestly say that's not me.
She actually takes on a subtle glow.
Stop it.
I'm
so
serious.
bad.
Sometimes we're in the studio and a tiny tiny halo of forms, and I have to kind of I'm just.
You are just so bad.
We are but in truth, this is truth. The vehicle of this show, the medium that we've been working in now for a couple 3 years, has allowed us to, I believe, allowed you to kind of spread those thoughts and those messages, because I will call them messages. If you open yourself up to grace, which far too few people actually do. Most people are like, I don't want to be bothered with grace. It's like too much trouble. But Margaret will allow that to come in, and then it comes in. It's almost like a download, and then we'll spend. We run out of time. We run out of time in many shows where we say, well, we have plenty more to say. We get off the air. A little more inside baseball. We'll get off the air. We'll sign off. We'll say good night to Scott, and then we'll get off the air and say, man, we could have gone on for another couple hours about that, and lost the whole audience. but then sometimes we'll have another show later, and not necessarily the next week. We'll a few weeks or sometimes months later, we'll go back and return to that topic and try to explore it further. You once asked us, Scott, whether we'll run out of material.
Yeah, what a stupid question that was.
Well, but in fact, we never find that we don't have something that we can talk about. Sometimes it's something we've talked about before, but when you pick sometimes a very simple topic and you go into it a little bit, it can really just kind of mushroom out into this amazing sort of, it connects on many different levels, and
Right.
we find ourselves referring in sometimes to shows that we had done prior, even a few months or even a year or so back. Say, oh yeah, we talked about that, but now it makes more sense in this context too. So that
it opens perspectives up.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that might be one of the things that happens here, is that we're able to shift from one perspective to another, and you're bringing people along with you as you do that shift.
Yeah.
And that's always interesting, because that's like, it reminds me of like when you're taking a grandchild or a little child and introducing them to something that you find absolutely amazing. And they become, I love the expressions on the little ones, especially because they're just right there. And this enwrapped look. It's like, oh yeah, that's so cool.
Right.
And we did this repeatedly with the little guys when it came to rocks and stones. Kids love rocks. So suddenly they have an adult that's interested in the rock that they just picked up off the driveway as much as they're interested in it. And so the two of us will go into a discussion about the rock. And it's just the best thing in the world, because you either like the rock or you don't.
Right. Well, and when we had the store, we would have some of our best conversations with the little ones that would come in, and they would bring in, they would go and find their special rock, and we'd have a really nice little conversation about that rock. And even those conversations, because they would come back a year later or 2 years later and say, oh yeah, and they want to talk about that rock again, and we could have that same sort of conversation with the older iteration of these kids.
As they got older, and then we could start talking about how crystals were forming, how they grew, and they would ask, and you just love that young mind, because they're always curious. So does it grow like that? Is it always sharp? Does it grow sharp? Is it always that color? Why is it that color? How come light does this when it hits this? And
in entertaining that, and both of us find that rewarding and fascinating, to entertain these types of heartfelt questions. Oftentimes we could get other people who are coming in and they're just really there to basically, because you're a captive audience and they're bored. You can't leave the shop, so they're going to just talk at you. And you're there to respond, and sometimes those conversations wouldn't go anywhere. But occasionally, even those guys would strike upon something where we could actually have a real conversation with them.
You know what? I have to tell you this story, Scott. This is a funny one. Our shop was in this outdoor mall, and we were in between like two shoe shops. So the ladies were always going into the shoe shops, and the guys would wind up coming into the rock shop because, they don't want to see the shoes.
Right. Right. We were like détente.
So I had a store full of people. I was the only one in there, and I was helping a little boy. And these two guys came in because their wives were shoe shopping. And they basically, it's again, you knew that you were the focus of their attention, because they knew you couldn't escape.
Right.
So, and they basically, since it was the two of them, it reminded you of two mischievous little boys. Like, we're going to do something, We're
going to get you going.
Yeah. So they looked at me and they said, and they had come in, and it's the typical greeting, oh, welcome to the Rock and Gem. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask. And they go, yeah, I have a question. And you just knew, your radar goes up. It's like,
That's what you
here
get
it comes.
you get the gun out from under the counter.
I couldn't. I had little children in the store. It was
Right.
just not going to happen.
No firearms. But yes.
So they came in and they said, why is it that women like shoes?
Good thing you hadn't shot them by now. That's a good question.
And it's like, and then they went into the complaint about their wives and shoes and stuff. And you have people in the store and you're like, can I tend to these people? No, you want me, you basically feel like, you want to play cat and mouse. So I turned to them and this little part of me just said, okay, I'll play. Looked at them and said, do you really want to know? And in that particular tone, and they're like, wait a minute. And then they looked at me, oh, so you're going to tell us some big secret. I said, look, just looked at him, didn't say a word. And he said, yeah, we do. So I looked at him, and this came out very simply. If you want to know a woman's mood, look at her shoes.
Oh, damn, I wish I knew that a long time ago.
Yes, if this is the big secret, by the way, this is worth the price of admission. Right here. Listen carefully. Go.
And the look on their faces was priceless because it's like I hit them with something. And they actually took a half step backwards when that came. And the rest of the store went dead silent with all the people that were in there. A couple of the ladies nodded their heads, and one guy in the back was like, oh. They looked at me and they said, what? Why do they have so many shoes? It's because they're moose. But I only have 2 pair.
And one of them is like got holes in it.
And I looked at him and my eyebrows went up like, mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, wait. And it's like, and you could see the thought process happening. It's like, they have all these shoes because they have all these moods?
Wait, I don't have any moods that
like,
I know of.
Does that mean I only have 2 moods? So, and they were like, oh, okay, well, I guess I better go out and check where she's at. So they both went out.
Better go find her. Look at her shoes.
But the funny part was the guy in the back that went, he had to run to the desk I was at and say, they're going out there to look at their wives' shoes.
You should have shot one of them in the foot and go, how's that shoe thing going now, Bobby?
Well, the funny part about it was, Scott, the expressions on their faces, that suddenly they had a real answer.
Yeah, they weren't expecting that.
To a question that they never expected. They basically expected a response of, well, that's women, and you're a guy, and you don't know what you're talking about, kind of thing.
Right. They were expecting the ha-ha answer.
And he was given an answer where he's actually chewing on it, realizing that, maybe I sounded really foolish.
Yeah.
Not too smart.
You see, Margaret doesn't need firearms. She's, like I said, she's already registered with the FBI as
Everybody
a deadly
needs Wait. Everybody needs firearms.
Okay, that's true. By the way, speaking of firearms, I don't want to break this up, but can we go on all night?
Well, we can go on for a little longer, sure.
All right, awesome. Well, we're having a great time, and sometimes over the course of the show, we have had opportunities to go a little longer, and like I said, we do run out of time. Margaret and I get into these conversations. We're having one now with the 3 of us, where the time just flies by, and when we first started, Margaret said this to me, and I was sort of wondering about it myself. I said, well, maybe that's a long time. Maybe an hour will be tough to to fill, and we've never had a problem filling an hour.
No.
No.
Just awful, but it's true.
It's
So,
because you
yeah,
guys,
and then
you guys are articulate, intelligent. You have something to offer, and most of the time, an hour is not long enough.
No.
no, it's just. I think I said it before. It's when you are able to touch into a real conversation, and I think that's few and far between. You know, there's not enough people having real conversation with other people. They think that a complaint is a conversation, or they think that um,
A rant is a
rant
conversation.
is a conversation, and it's like no. You know, you were made for relationship, and conversation is your tool.
Right.
And to really embrace that and say, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with you whether you realize it or not. It's like
Right.
what that conversation I had with the two guys I just told you about.
Right. I
That
mean,
turned into a real conversation.
what I do is I never start a conversation without first looking at Margaret's shoes. Say, okay, this is going to be a fun one. Oh no, I'm in trouble. Those are stilettos. But in truth, we've known each other such a very, very long time, and it doesn't. The conversation we've been having has, we've never run out of things to talk about through all these years, and I must say that we've been through a lot together. And those conversations that we have, that we don't, we wouldn't be able to share with anyone because it wouldn't make sense maybe to other people, are the ones we do share are outgrowths of the conversations that we probably couldn't share. They're derivatives in the sense that, our experiences, which are individual and unique, have commonality with everybody's experiences. One of the reasons that we named the show "The Soul of the Everyman," and we thought quite a little bit of time before we came up with that silly name, was that the everyman, the concept of everyman, really does mean all of us, all of our little limited lives, all of our limited human lives here, are connected on an energetic level, on a spiritual level, on a soul level, on a physical level. We all go through. We were all very familiar with the stages of life. We all were infants. We were all helpless. We were all young children where we had to learn everything. We were all teenagers where maybe we got picked on, or maybe we picked on people. We were all young adults. We've all gone through, or we're going through, or we're going to go through these stages. And that connects us. We all have the same desires for love and for comfort and for warmth and for security and relationship, and we all have the same passions where we get annoyed at people and pissed off and want to kill someone and shoot their feet and all this other thing. So we have a mental and emotional connection. We have a spiritual connection. We all have a yearning to connect with the spirit. We all have the yearning to understand ourselves and connect with our inner selves, connect with our hearts. And so the show works on those levels because we're not talking about anything that's out there that no one can figure out, that it's like, the unified field theory. No. Yes, those things exist, and sometimes they come up in our conversations, but it's the fact that we're talking about things that everyone can say, oh yeah, I understand that, or I can understand where that would come from, or that's happened to me, or something like that happened to someone I know. And it makes the conversation real, and that's all it is. It's just a conversation. You can have one yourself. You can look at someone's shoes and just start talking to them. It works. It's not that hard. Buck up, Buttercup. Have a conversation.
Did you say buck up?
Buck up!
Oh, I thought you said something else. I was shocked there for a moment.
Suck up, Buttercup. Duck up, Fluttercup. I can say a lot of things that I won't say, but no. But take heart, have courage. Open your mouth and talk to somebody. You'd be surprised what you might learn about yourself and about them.
Yeah, you don't need to reside in a state of just outward appearance. because especially with the internet and the social media, it's always outer appearance. And having a conversation is touching you, touching the other person, touching the commonality between the two of you.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people look for the commonality between them and another person.
Well, I think they do. I think that there's a barrier there, though. There's a uncertainty, and I think maybe in some ways, showing people that barrier is really kind of a construct. It's something that you kind of make. It feels secure, but it really is something we kind of make up as we go along. That we're all, somehow not connected, and no one will understand my story, and no one wants to hear about me. No, everyone, open your mouth and say your piece, and mean what you say, or feel deeply about what you say, be passionate about it, and you'll find that there will be many, many people who may not like you, but they'll understand what you're talking about, or they may like you and understand what you're talking about, but they're not going to ignore you if you're sincere. I think that's part of it. It's being real. Keep it real.
Yeah, the phrase. Yeah, being truthful to yourself.
Don't be truthful, but you have to keep it real.
Well, you're truthful to yourself when you keep it real.
No, but good lies are okay. Just keep them. Keep be passionate. Be passionate about those lies.
Passionate about your life. Okay.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Margaret, is there a topic you wouldn't discuss?
Politics.
You mean on the air or just in general?
Yeah, I mean on the radio show. Is there a topic you would stay away from?
Right now, because of the amount of hatred that rises, I would say politics.
Yeah.
Because you can get drama anywhere. And who needs that? If you want to put effort into creating a space that's worth it for you and for anyone else with you, then it's a heart trueness, I guess is the best way to put it.
I mean, peripherally, we've brought it up. We say red team, blue team. We try, what we try to do, though, is, and you'll find this in all of our conversations, is we try not to prosecute one side or another. What we try to do is show people that all these factions are just other ways of dividing, and sometimes other ways of artificially putting people in a category where they're not people anymore. They're just those guys, that we can do anything we want to. So I think when we say, like politics, is we're not going to take one team or another team and say, this is our team, and if you're not on our team, because that's the antithesis of what we're trying to do here. But we'll
talk about just about anything.
We'll talk about anything, man. You show us your shoes, we'll talk about them.
I'm worried that the public today is more interested in what Vanna White is wearing on Wheel of Fortune than why they're here. What happens after death? What's the meaning of life?
I don't think so. I would say that it's very easy to put those facades on things, but when you get down underneath it, very, very quickly, people will throw those facades away if you show them that you're willing to trust, to be a trusted person. If you say, well, look, man, let's get real, people get real pretty quick. And I think when you do that, they suddenly realize that they're having a real conversation. And there's two reactions. They either get afraid and happy feet and they want to run away, or they'll take courage and they'll really dive in.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If you allow for space for them to be able to express what's really there, what's inside, and that's what I'm interested in hearing is, well, what is it your heart is saying? What is your heart saying to me? I'd like to hear it. And that's always, it never phases me when that happens. Truth. And I've heard some really, really horrendous stories.
They turn into puddles of goo on the floor. I watch it happen. Sometimes I have to get a bucket.
And then that's when grace comes in and the real conversation starts.
Yeah.
Because that connection is who we are as human beings. That's a vital part of who we are, not who we think we are, but who we actually are. And when you're able to communicate, when you're able to converse, when you're able to interact with another heart that way, there is a vast expanse that opens up. It's like space opens around you, and it's not threatening. It just is. It's like suddenly you're touching into, when people say keep it real, but that experience is real. It became real.
I mean, you see it sometimes. You've all seen it when you go to the beach. And like I said, we've talked about this on the air once in a while, where suddenly there's a shovel and a hole, and then every kid within a quarter mile shows up the hole with another shovel, and suddenly you've gone from being people at the beach to a community of people digging a hole, and no one knows anyone's name, and no one cares, and no one knows whose shovel it is that they started with.
Why are
and
we
no
doing
one
this?
cares.
I have no idea.
But it's fun. And we're all brought into the moment of that kind of timelessness of childhood. The 2-year-old mind rears its ugly head or its wonderful head and says, "Hey, we're just digging a hole in the beach." No one has any. Everyone has their bodies. They're clothed for modesty, but that's about it. Everyone's got sand in their toes, and we're all just digging a hole in the beach. And there's a timelessness to it. People say we love the sound of the water. Well, we do, because there's a timelessness to that too. You're back in a kind of an innocence that we crave. And when you give that to people in conversation, you open yourself up and say, now this is going to be an innocent, on the beach, shovels at the hole conversation. All of a sudden they can't resist diving in, because it's like, wow, this is so awesome. And you touch people at that level. Margaret does, and I just witness these. I just stand there and go, "Wow, here we go again."
Michael.
I occasionally I'll help.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to, though. It's all gooey. They're all like, ew, yuck. People. Bleh. She doesn't. She's completely courageous. She has no fear. She just dives right completely into their business, and just heals them left and right. She's just amazing.
Margaret, is there a person you found more challenging than anyone else?
Usually family members.
Wait a minute.
That goes without saying, but in your experience, for someone, a total stranger, whether they came up to you in the rock shop or not, or someone you just encountered in your experience, do you ever get negative vibes?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I've had to deal with what I would term pure evil.
You know my ex-wife.
Yeah, well, maybe. No. But
there have been. I have had it to experience. I've been through a couple of experiences where I'm meeting people who their energy is just evil, and then I've met people who had evil intent, and you had to deal with them. Right. And
or they have things on them,
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing. Is sometimes people have demons on them that drive them to do things that they don't even realize that they're doing.
Some come in for help with that. They know they have a demon and they don't know how to get rid of it.
That's another. Gee, my God, that's a whole nother story right there. We have time for that, aren't we? Way over.
We are, but we're talking about demons. It's okay.
Oh, all right.
We're
Is
fine.
that okay, Scott?
We're fine. Yes, we are fine.
Okay.
Just
with the store, I had connection with a Tibetan monk who understood the energy that was running through the store. And what he did was he put a kind of a blessing on the doorway of the store. And what that would do, that blessing, how do I even describe it? It's almost like an energetic mechanism where if someone goes into the store and they have like this demon thing stuck on them, it would get sucked into that thing if they tried to pass through the threshold. Some of the things knew that it could feel that was there, and they would actually detach from the person and wait outside. It wouldn't come near the threshold. It would wait outside. And the person that came in felt so much better because the thing wasn't on them anymore.
Hmm.
And that's when the discussions would start, because they would say, why do I always feel so much better whenever I come in here? And the question would be, do you really want to know?
Right.
Do you really want to know what we're seeing, what's going on? And sometimes it would be, there's a thing that was on you that's now outside, or it was caught in that energetic mechanism that the Tibetan monk put up. And that if you want to call it a trap, almost, we had to clean the trap periodically. But yeah, and I had an incident where, oh my gosh, there was these two guys who there had been a rash of robberies in that area, and you could tell that they were looking for a place to rip off. It's as simple as that. They were looking either for something to steal, or if you're vulnerable, etc. And luckily, there were two of us in the store at that day. One of the guys really loved rocks. It's just simple. He just really loved rocks. So he got all excited because it was a rock shop, and he came through the doorway. And as he came through, I could see things were getting sucked off of him. But and he was brought in by that, just the interest and the joy of, oh, I get to see all these rocks. His friend, on the other hand, could care less about rocks. And he looked at the place, and his friend was, the first guy that came in was calling to him saying, hey, you got to come in here and see this. This is just so cool. The guy was like, he really didn't want to be there. He got really uncomfortable. And what I found absolutely fascinating, and the other person that was in the store will testify to this, he could not cross the threshold. He was leaning on the lintel. He was talking to his friend from the doorway. He did not want to cross the threshold. And then it got to the point where the guy was in there too long. He felt like he was in there too long, and I could see that the energies were intensifying at the door. So the second guy, he braced himself and almost like threw himself through the door, and when he walked in, it was like he was walking on hot coals. Tippy-toe, 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 grabbed his friend by the hand and was like yanking him out. Like, no, we got to go. And tippy-toed his way back out. And the other guy said, oh, thanks for showing me the rocks, and then ran. But I've had experiences where stuff like that would happen. We had to clean the trap that day.
Yes.
Wild? Is that wild enough?
Well, in many ways, the people that you met through the rock shop would be either ones who would come back again and again and again. Some of them became, they worked for you in the rock shop. Some of them spun off and did their own thing, but they took some of the knowledge and some of the energy that they got from the rock shop and turned it into their own endeavors. And no one was unchanged by that place. And we had it, almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And even to this day, people will say, "Oh, I wish the rock shop was open." It's only been closed for like 9 years, but it's still missed.
Yeah, that's true. I have had people say that they miss the place.
Yeah. So you made a little difference,
That was God's grace coming through. That was the heart, that unconditional love heart state that was speaking. I say it again, it's not me.
Well, I think that's what we're doing, Scott. I think that's what we're doing here with the Soul of Everyman. It's another vehicle. If you do send us $5.95 and postage, we will send you a rock. It'll be a nice one.
A beautiful
right?
rock.
Please don't send $5.95 and postage.
We accept cash.
We accept cash, but no checks, no checks at all. And Scott, you guys can take care of that, right? No problem. Don't send cash. Don't send anything.
We have never received cash.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, I mean, but yeah, I think the vehicle of the Rocks shop was a good place to kind of hone some of those skills. But the basic skill set that I think is part of this show is the skill set you've had and been grooming and kind of developing your whole life, which is this ability to connect with people. And we try to do it here through the radio. And so we'd like more hate mail. We want to talk to you people.
Did that answer your question, Scott, at all?
No hate mail, but a few bomb threats do get through.
Oh.
They're mostly from my mom.
Aw, oh, mom's probably too old for bombs anymore. Well, if we ever had a show where people could call in and we could talk to them, we would do that. But I think the way it works right now is people do listen. We would love to find out someday how many people are actually listening, whether it is actually 7 or 17. But whomever listens,
it's all good.
It's all good.
Michael, if I might just interject,
yes,
we're going to do a show where people can call in.
Oh God!
What's your favorite color?
Black. Moving on.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm going to get more hate mail than I've already gotten in December, but the average listener does not contribute anything to the content of the particular show they're calling into.
Well, that's probably true.
We've had screaming girlfriends say, "You better not be on that damn phone." And then the line goes dead.
Right.
I'm sorry. I thought I should let you know about that.
Well, I mean, it's fine. It's the that's why I think that's why we're doing this now, and it has been a couple, 2.5 odd years, and I think our 3-year anniversary will be coming up in March, right?
Yeah, I think so.
In March, so we'll have our 3-year anniversary, and who knows, many more to come.
Yeah, it's always interesting, Scott. No matter what, many times we're even surprised at what happens.
Yeah, we're surprised. Yes, we are.
What actually how the conversation had evolved, and suddenly these concepts come out. Sometimes it's far deeper than we thought it would go.
All the shows that you have done will be in cyberspace. Many, many, many generations after we have all passed.
True.
And your shows, compared to, I shouldn't say this, some of our other programs, who may not have the same shelf life that you guys do, your show is truly about wisdom and intelligence, which should be around for a long, long time.
Well, we hope so, and we're just trying to have a conversation, and I think we're having a good one.
Yeah, and it's an express. Again, we go back to, well, what is it to be human except to be able to communicate to another soul and let that soul know that, hey, you know what, we have a lot in common.
We have a lot in common.
Hmm. And it's a beautiful thing. It's like, yay! It's almost like that's one of the reasons why I love watching little kids and babies. When they first meet you, they're just so happy that you walked in the room, and that's all that's needed. You don't have to do anything else. You just be there.
Amen. Amen.
It's true.
You are just there. That's what makes them happy.
Yeah. And they smile that toothless grin at you. Their eyes are wide open and alight, and you're just like, hi. And if they can get the hi out, or you can do a little wave, it's like, yes, I'm doing something. It's wonderful. Right. And just to get back to that, I think that would be so wonderful if we could just appreciate the fact, hey, you're there.
Yeah. And we are happier as a people when we're there, and it's something that I think when you see people with midlife crisis, or when you see people who are at the end of their careers, and they think, well, that wasn't, I'm not fulfilled. I feel like I wasted my time or my life. The moments that they were missing are those moments, the moments of just connection and conversation, and those are meaningful in and of themselves. They don't require accomplishment. They don't require remuneration. They just require you to be there. And the fulfillment of life is in those moments, and they're precious, and they're infrequent. And that's part of what, the kind of thing that if you are in something that says, well, my life is not fulfilled, get closer to those type of moments, and you may find that none of the other stuff really matters all that much. It seems like it should, but I think that's the fallacy, is that we think that these things are going to fulfill us, and oftentimes, they really are just a kind of a distraction, yes, or a kind of substitute for fulfillment.
A lot of people think that this is what I'm taught is supposed to fulfill me.
Right. Yeah. Right, and it oftentimes does not, and yet the things that we, they say everything I learned about life I learned in kindergarten. Well, we went to a really cool kindergarten, obviously, but but in truth, the things that are correct and precious about being, you learn very early in your life, and I think the key is to try and hold on to pieces of them and see them, recognize them when they come up, because they don't come up all that often, and then be there. Be in that moment.
Maybe that's what we should all focus on in the next decade. The new 2020.
In the 2020s, right? Hey, Scott, we're in the 2020s. The roaring 20s are almost here.
Now, if you had to count to 10, what would the first number be?
Between what and what?
Count to 10. What's the first number?
Well, it depends if you're asking a computer scientist or a person who deals with ordinal numbers. Computer scientists start with 0.
Margaret, what if you had to count to 10? What's the first number you would start with?
Go. He thinks I'm an idiot.
Normally, on an everyday basis, 1.
And when we talk about centuries, the 19th century started when? Michael?
1901. 1900 is the end of the 18th century.
That's the problem.
You're right. We're missing a whole year.
We're missing a whole year. When, if you were back, when Jesus was born in August 21st, 7 BC, the next year, did everybody say, we're in year 0?
They didn't.
And was the next year also 0, so that it came out to 100 at the end of the century?
There are some calendar reforms that need to be done.
Actually, weren't they in the Jewish calendar?
They were.
Yeah.
Where it's the year 5762 or something silly like that. What year is it in the Jewish calendar? Who knows?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Does it matter at all? Of course not.
No, but in truth, you're right about the there was no year zero, but computer engineers do start with zero. We are an unusual bunch because that's just the way we are.
My son is in the same field that you are, and
that's right. Yeah, you told me he's a computer guy.
he makes way too much money.
No, that's not true. I'm sure he doesn't think so.
I still live in my van down by the river. I think he makes too much money.
What? The van down by the river?
Yeah.
I missed the beginning of that.
I still live in my van down by the river.
Oh, you still live in your van down by the river? No, you don't.
My son makes too...
Hello?
My son makes too much money.
Well, he should give his dad some.
It's
There's an idea.
It's a long story.
Well, we said the only people we have problems with are relatives, family members. Don't we all? Everybody has family members. Even Jesus couldn't do a miracle in his family, in his hometown. Remember that?
Yeah, that's true.
What? You're going to do a miracle? You're just a carpenter's son. Get out of here.
Yeah, family is the thing that will challenge you the most.
Oh my God, that's so true.
You okay, Scott?
Yes.
Did we lose him?
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yes, I am here on the job, and you put me on the spot. What was the question?
No, there's no question. We were just saying the family members are the most challenging.
That's what my relatives tell me.
It's always Thanksgiving, Christmas. Easter's not a big family holiday. Well, it can be, I suppose. And New Year's, I guess.
There's the old expression, the black sheep of the family.
Yes.
Do either of you fall into that category?
Not me. No. Do we are the black sheep of the family?
Probably.
Margaret, come on.
I think we could both have qualified at one point or another in our lives.
Probably.
Why would you have been, Margaret? Why would you have been considered that?
The black sheep, because I'm an independent thinker.
Well, no, you also tell them. Margaret has a truth bomb that she uses occasionally. She tells people the absolute truth. that can make you the black sheep real fast.
Yeah, well, the going phrase I had always said to them, almost as a warning, but they never listened, was never ask me a question unless you really want an answer.
Right. There's the black sheep right there.
And a lot of, especially culturally speaking, has a lot to do with stroking egos, because it's a very male-dominated type of thing, and I am an independent thinker. So if they asked a question and I would say that, and they were like, no, tell me an answer, give me an answer, it wasn't the answer that they wanted to hear. In their own minds, they always thought it had to be the way it's always been.
Right. And so I think occasionally your parents were a little bit embarrassed by the answers you gave people.
Yes. And it would come out in a way that the friends of my parents, their response is, you should beat her more.
You beat her for a while. My arm is tired.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
You should beat her more.
You should beat
because,
her more.
seriously, because it's part of the culture. this was when corporal punishment was acceptable.
Back in the good old days.
Margaret, what do you believe happens when a person dies?
Oh, well, there is a person, each person is born with a spirit that incarnates in a body. And that integration of a spirit living in a body creates soul. The soul is the interaction between spirit and body. So when death of the body happens, the spirit is eternal and it will leave. But the soul is the accumulation of experiences that have happened in that person's lifetime. And that soul is unique. Every soul that is born down here is unique because every life and life experience is unique. So it takes a little bit longer to separate out of the physical body. And once it does, because there's a whole process where the energy of the soul has got to withdraw from the physical body, and then where it exits, because you have doorways in your body where it will exit, your soul will exit. And the Tibetan Buddhists believe that as long as you leave through the third, fourth, fifth, all the way up to the crown chakra, one of those doorways, you will incarnate as a human. But if you wind up leaving through the first or second chakra, you will incarnate as an animal or a plant or an insect. So the soul leaves with the experiences and brings all of that back up into a spiritual realm. And what I believe happens is the soul itself, almost, how do I say this? It reports back to a larger soul family, a larger group that it's related to. And as that is brought back up to the spirit realm, that's when it's decided whether or not there needs to be another iteration or another soul experience that needs to be had. And then it goes through another process of, okay, I've got to get down here. I'm going to have to choose with divine intervention, because the spirit aspect is always there with wisdom to help you choose what you need to learn next.
Right, next incarnation.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I feel happens. This planet is almost like a school where you're choosing what courses you need to take. And it's not one of those things that you could just drop out of.
No.
Once you're
go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
And you've got to complete the time that is allotted to you, which is, I think, probably a concept people haven't even considered. When you come down here, you are allotted a certain amount of time or life to be lived down here. And I've had people ask, well, why is it that babies how can it be that babies are born and die? What good is that? Why would God do something like that? And the Tibetans have an interesting answer to that. Because you were allotted a certain amount of life down here and time down here, and if you suicided, there was still life that needed to be played out down here. So that gets transferred to another body until it's played out.
Wow.
And, some people have been repeating first grade for a very long time.
Yes, because they want to repeat first grade. It's
Right.
a willful thing.
Willful thing.
You get to choose your pathway, and people sometimes become overwhelmed by the experience down here, and they just want to it's almost like throwing a tantrum. I don't want to learn and I don't want to be here, but you've already been allotted your lifespan and time down here. Your soul has got to make an iteration down here, and it's just fascinating when you look at it that way. You know, it's like, wait a minute. So that's one of the reasons why the Tibetans find suicide very, very bad, because it means that the soul that hasn't lived out its life has got to live out its life somewhere, and it's going to be a short one.
Michael?
Yes, sir. Scott? Are you there?
I am.
Oh, good.
I have to step away from the mic for a moment because there are flashing lights and policemen at our doorstep.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow.
So the hate mail arrived?
They have guns drawn.
Oh, man.
Oh, God. Are you all right, Scott?
I'll be back.
Okay.
Okay. We'll wait.
We'll say a prayer. Angels. Oh, dear.
Well, maybe an alarm got tripped or something silly.
It's okay because the phone system had a default was just calling 911, so we're all cool.
Oh, well, why did it do that?
No idea. You'll have to ask the manufacturer. We just bought this phone system anyway.
Well.
Oh, does that make trouble for you then? Because it was...
No, but
Oh.
an interesting thing is that we live on we're in a small town in northeastern Ohio, and the unimaginative members of our city council could only think of about 25 names for streets. So we happen to have the same name of a street on the other side of town.
That's good.
Oh, dear.
There are 7 or 8 streets in our city who have this problem.
Lovely.
How about we just number them?
No, that
Anyway,
would be terrible.
so I've lived in my 9 or 10 times we've lost count, frankly. The times that the cops show up here, like recently with guns drawn, because there's an incident on the other side of town.
Oh, boy.
Mm.
I remember in Easter morning where I live, they dispensed fire trucks at the same time with the cop cars at the same time for the ambulances for a medical emergency. And these guys show up on my deck. They're banging on the door at Easter morning.
Right.
And the guy at I used to work with the chief, and he said, Z-Man, you were sound asleep. Yes, I was. Why are you here?
Why are you here?
For a heart attack call. Oh. Do you guys realize there is a blah, blah, blah drive and a blah, blah, blah avenue? Oh, and they all scramble down the driveway, and he's already dead. I'm just saying, the guy's already dead. And
right.
They all...
He's gone. The emergency's over.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Or guns drawn, and anyway. It's fun to live with the unimaginative councilman in Alliance, Ohio.
Well, it could be that they did it by lottery. If I were them, I would just name every street the same. Everyone to be Maple Avenue, like the whole town, and just say we all live on Maple Avenue. It's kind of like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. There's a problem on Maple Avenue. Which block? I don't know. We don't have roads out here in Sussex County. We have none. There are no roads out here at all.
Do you have sidewalks?
No, we do not have sidewalks. We really barely have roads. I mean, there's just like when they pave the roads, they just put out. You ever heard of oil and chip?
Yes, it's not an all bad idea, but yes, I know exactly what that is.
Yeah, I mean, they just throw down. They spray the roads with like sticky oil. They throw down a bunch of gravel, and they say that's good. We're done. We're done
Cost
here.
effectiveness, it's not all that bad.
Right. Very cost effective. So that's what our roads are, and there are 0 street lights. There's a deer every quarter mile. You can just run into a deer if you wanted to, and there's one main road. We don't have a town. There's a firehouse. There's a gas station which used to say downtown Colesville, which has been closed for 15 years. So that's where we live.
Do you have police protection where you live?
It's a long story, but our whole local police force was arrested and carted away about 20 years ago, and we have not had police since.
Do you
They were all dealing drugs.
Yeah, I played in the band where 2 of the guys were drug dealers. Oh, we had big crowds.
Yeah, I'll bet.
We were terrible, but we drew. Anyway.
Well, I mean, seriously, and then the town hall burned down, so then no one could find the records. So we have state police protection, which means that they come by once a week and they say, "Are you guys still here? Good, that's nice."
And what state do you live in?
Oh, in Jersey. We're in Jersey, so it's not. We're not that far from Ohio. We're 2 states, 2 states over.
Folks, that's New Jersey, USA, because we have lots of listeners in Europe would think that was in England.
That's right, the Jersey Islands. Yeah, that's true. There's also somewhere there's a Jersey somewhere in Australia, so it could be there too.
All right, I'm going to drop a bomb question on you. Hold on.
I'm ready.
It's about, if you have not seen this already, you will in the next couple of days. Hold on. Oh, crap, I can't find it. I'm going to do this from memory. It's called the Secretum Requiem. This was a Vatican document put out, I'm going to guess it was 1963. Forgive me, folks, about the details. The bottom line is, in 1947, the U.S. government realized there were aliens because they found some dead ones out there. What was that called? Out there, out in Arizona. Anyway.
Roswell.
I had a United States diplomat tell me this to my face, that this happened. This happened. All right. Anyway, what's happened recently in the last maybe 5 days is that a video that has been put out by the Vatican showing lots of stuff. You know, you would, if you didn't know what you were looking at, you would say, okay, this is cool. But 6 seconds of that video shows a procession of bishops walking into a small chapel, presumably at, I don't know, some basilica in the Vatican, and it's led by choir boys with the tall cross, and there's maybe 25, 30 bishops walking behind them 2 by 2. White garments, white funny-looking hats. And about halfway back through the line is an individual who is not a bishop in the white garments and the white hat. He's in a red garment with gold trim, which I'm told means up the scale. Anyway.
Cardinal.
It's not a human.
Hmm.
It's not a human. The rest of the bishops are like, they don't give a crap. They're walking into this, whatever they're walking into this. There's only 6 seconds on the Vatican video. But, 6 seconds in today's technology is an eternity. His head is a peanut-shaped cigarette butt.
Wow.
Go look at it. It's all over YouTube. Just type in Vatican alien and you'll see 100 opportunities. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I'll have to think. What we'll have to do is watch that video and see what we see with the peanut-faced alien. But that's cool.
That's fascinating.
Well, I'm sure we don't do this, but you guys have. I'm sure there's been a rash of UFO sightings. Wasn't there one not 2 days ago where they said they had a video of this thing going really
over New York.
Over New York, yeah.
I didn't see
so
that.
what I mean, this was all over the internet, and I didn't see the video. I don't know if you saw the video.
No.
But they said, Scott, that 2019 was the year that quote unquote UFOs became legit because so many people have been dropping so many videos into the public sphere. Who knows? Maybe 2020 the aliens are going to just reveal themselves. Like maybe tonight. You never know.
If you went out in your back, listeners, and Margaret and Michael, if you went out into your backyard tonight,
Yes.
because you go back and you look up at the sky and you go, hey, what's going on? And something happens. That's a wide variety of things that might happen to you. And you go back inside and try to tell your family. They're going, call the cops. This guy's lost his mind.
They would.
Some of us have had face-to-face experiences. And when we tell people, they roll their eyes and think we're crazy.
I think that's becoming less and less, though. There's just too much of it,
It happened. Deal with it. Margaret.
Yes, love.
What do you do with crazy people that say they've been face-to-face with beings that are not humans?
We've had a lot of people come through the store like that.
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, that's one thing. The Rock and Gem, we would get lots of folks who either had,
Well, they were in. I had people who were being influenced
right
by aliens. Someone else I knew was taking care of a hybrid individual and trying to help this person get information out.
Margaret,
it's very broad.
we got that all the time.
Wait, back up, Margaret. We've had several hybrids on the station, but some people listening will have no idea what you're talking about. Could you define what a hybrid is?
Well, it is a person who has DNA from beings that are not from Earth. And it is an Earth, a human, but the DNA is different. So that is, and then there was other people who came in that were walk-ins, and other people that came in that were, oh goodness, you name it, we got it. What was their question again, Scott? I've had the experience with them, but what was your question?
I don't know. I deleted the message. I'm not sure. So I can't. That's why Michael is ready to jump in.
I was? Go ahead.
I thought maybe you were in the restroom.
No. I am happily sitting across from Margaret, who is not glowing at the moment, but that doesn't always stay that way.
Were you surprised they dropped the charges on a technicality?
Whose charges?
I was kidding.
Oh, okay.
Wait, maybe not.
Yes, I was surprised. Which charges? Who's been charged?
When did you stop beating your children?
Have you stopped beating your wife? I love those questions because they're the logical. I forget which logical fallacy they are, but they're always good things to. If you want to drop something into a party, that's always a good one to start with. So, hey, how you doing? Have you stopped beating your wife? What? Oh, man.
A man should never beat a woman, but you can push her down the steps.
It should make it look like an accident. So, hey, Scott, are you doing anything for this wonderful 2020 night? Because you know what we're hearing outside our door for some bizarre reason? Someone's setting off fireworks, and we are in the middle of God knows where country. So I think maybe we're being shelled.
I'm surprised. I called 911 about an hour ago. They're still not here.
I thought they came in just not too long ago with guns drawn.
I know. That's because they don't take us seriously anymore. No. Folks, Michael and Margaret Lyons are truly remarkable. I'm trying to say this, are remarkable individuals. And you can listen to numerous shows that are posted there that have been downloaded thousands and thousands of times and will exist in cyberspace forever. You guys, I wish we had 10 more shows just like you guys.
Well, we have relatives we can bring on. No, we'll just have to have 10 more hours. We can't do that many shows. We wouldn't have lives.
Well, let's make a projection. We'll start with you, Michael. Then we'll go to your wife. Where do you want to be 5 years from now, as far as this show goes?
Gosh, with this show, it would be very cool. What we've been talking about, and this is something I'll just share with the folks who are all listening now and hanging on our every word, is we've been thinking about publishing a book, basically called "Conversations with the Soul of the Everyman," and distilling, some of this wisdom into book form. So we may be putting out a book one of these days soon. It takes a lot of time. We've been thinking about it, but it takes a tremendous amount of time to do. Because talking on the radio is easy, but transcribing all this incredible stuff into book form is not so easy.
Not for audiobooks. Excellent idea.
We could do an audiobook, but we'd have to figure out how to put it all together. But for this show in 5 years' time, I have no idea. I mean, what we do is interesting, and we love doing it. I'd like to see the audience grow. Who knows? We're open to the possibilities of the universe. Ooh, that was erudite. No, you're up.
We are open to wherever we need to go. I mean, the conversations are always, there's a touch of grace that, as I said, that runs through it, and that's the guiding force.
Yep.
Whatever or whoever needs to hear, whether it's a certain phrase or just be introduced to a concept, we allow it to flow through. Maybe that's the best way to put it. And they may not need it now. Sometimes what you're doing is allowing the seed of a change to flow through you. And whoever needs to receive that will take that seed in, and it will grow when it needs to. So we're open to that. We understand that process.
That was a better answer. I would give her the points.
I didn't know we were playing for points.
Well, I'm pretty sure we were playing for points, and I'm pretty sure winning.
I didn't think so.
My answer was dumb.
Thank you guys for inviting me on your show. All these dials look alike at this point, but there we go. Your parting thoughts as we fade out.
Happy New Year, Merry 2020, and have a good year.
Yes, have a wonderful year, a wonderful decade coming in. Hold to that. There's always something new around the corner. And I'm Margaret.
I'm Michael.
And that our guest was Z-Man. And we thank you for listening.